Afternoon. Let's get this. So, Housing Visions, we are a nonprofit affordable housing developer with a mission to revitalize and sustain neighborhoods through a comprehensive approach that improves quality of life. We've all passed the reading test for today. So we started in 1990 out of a result of trying to turn a neighborhood around at a church where our co-founder was going. As they like to tell the story, one day the pastor walked out the front door, went, "Oh, we got to do something about this," and about 10 months later our organization popped up with a mission to turn around the neighborhood. We were very successful in that mission, and today we have about 1,300 units in 11 cities in upstate New York. Really, every time we look at a model, and I'll get back to how Van Kuren Square works back into veterans housing, we look at these 9 elements that we do. We really want to take a critical look and say, if we build housing, if we do activities, can we really make a difference? We've never had a serious NIMBY issue on anything we've done. We've never really had. We've only been places where we've been invited, which is pleasant. I don't recommend trying to be where you're not invited. And high quality design and construction, and the use for us of 9% tax credits, which have been huge for us to develop. So that's the list of where we are in upstate New York. You can see our model generally tends to be scattered site development. We've got a lot of buildings with between 2 and 4 units. Van Kuren Square was a little bit different approach for us, but it really helped us in our home neighborhood in Syracuse, where we got started, to really kind of get rid of one of the last albatrosses in our neighborhood. Some of the things when you're thinking about housing in particular, if you're a provider and not necessarily a developer, does the neighborhood make sense where you're looking? Who are your partners? I'm going to assume everyone's a nonprofit in here, so I can speak ill of for-profits. Really, what do you want in what you get? And making sure you're vocal with who you're providing. If you're the provider, what features do you need to see in a building? What needs to be in there? And that gets into, who's driving the bus on the deal. There's things you want to see. Yes, as a developer, I bring certain expertises to it, but I need to know up front. I need to know what your non-negotiables are. It could be security, it could be services, it could be certain common spaces. There's a whole list of things that could be. So educate you on what you can do, and sometimes maybe the answer is no, but you really need to be forthright and upfront about what you want to see and what you know has worked and what you've seen that hasn't worked. From the service provider thing, one of the reasons Van Kuren Square works so well is we don't anticipate that the VA is going away anytime now. Some of the other agencies we've worked with in the support housing role, that's a really tricky piece in this day and age when people are constantly being squeezed for their service funding. And then, like most supportive housing service providers, if I ask you what's your need, you come back and you say infinite, which isn't very helpful for me. We need real data of what the needs are, and to be able to say, when we go to our funders, yes, we know we can fund these, yes, we know we can fill them, and this is how it's going to work. When units don't get filled in the tax credit side, which is a very business-oriented side, those are losses on the operating sheet, on the operating side, and you can't have too many vacant units for too long before you start to have real economic implications on that side of things. So, Van Kuren Square. This was one of the last significant blights in our neighborhood. It's about a 45,000 square foot vacant JCC, the Jewish Community Center, that was built in the mid-50s, been vacant for probably about 15 or 20 years. It was right in our home neighborhood preservation corporation neighborhood, and so there really wasn't anything that was going to happen to this building, and I'll get to the pictures here. We completely demolished the building. It was unsalvageable. There was no copper left in it. Plenty of asbestos for everyone. Lots of buried tanks that we found out after the fact. And plenty of mold and trees growing out of the roof. And really, it was a work between the VA, us, and the Housing Authority. The Housing Authority played a critical role in getting VASH vouchers, which were absolutely imperative to the success of this project. We normally don't do larger buildings, but in this case it was going to work for us, so we are seeking LEED Platinum on the building. We should find out fairly soon. And then the biggest thing is that we have the VA in our hands. They have 2 caseworkers whose offices are located in the building, which is extremely helpful, and that comes because of the VASH vouchers that we have in the building. Here are our sources and uses. HHAP was a great partner in this, about $3.5 million. The Housing Trust Fund through the state of New York, HCR. The city of Syracuse kicked in some funds. We deferred some of the fee that we were going to take on it, and then tax credits with our syndicator was Enterprise, and ultimately bought by M&T Bank, and we always liked them. They were a very good partner with us. So the operating details, all the utilities are included in the rent. That's part of the reason we went after LEED Platinum. LEED Platinum will be a nice plaque, but all the features that we have in there will really help our ongoing sustainability since we're paying the utilities in that. Units are fully furnished. A fun fact, which we'll get to that. Any of you are aware of Stickley Furniture. They provided all the furniture in this. They have a wonderful student line, so these are all Stickley appointed units of furniture. And then the most important thing in there is the 25 units of VASH vouchers. VASH really made this work in terms of what HHAP wanted to see, of how people were going to pay their rent. And then it also, again, secured those 2 on-site social workers from the VA.
Can I ask you about those real quick?
Yes.
So with the VASH vouchers, tell us about the process of getting those, and how was it difficult, or was it?
The VASH vouchers were the heaviest lift we had. So Syracuse, want to give some historical context, for about 10 years, Syracuse had the House Subcommittee Chair of VA and HUD Appropriations. That was very good for Syracuse and the VA. That said, we got a lot of resources in Syracuse. With that, we got a lot of great people who believe in the mission of what they're doing. So we have a great VA locally. I can't say enough good things about that. But really, at one point, whoever was the person who was coordinating homeless services for the VA, he liked to do applications and go out and get things, and when he saw things, he went and tried to grab them. And so Syracuse, right when we were doing this in about 2010, 2011, had just been awarded VASH vouchers, and so the heavy lift we had was convincing HUD and the VA that, like, hey, you need to shelve these for 2 years, but don't worry, it's all going to work out. And trying to get HUD and the VA to understand the process of development was really, really difficult. And we couldn't have gotten there without the VA, who luckily we had, or not only the VA, but really the Section 8 coordinator at the Syracuse Housing Authority at that point in time. She took it as a challenge to get it, and we got it at the 11th hour. And in terms of the financing, it's one of those things, we had to have the VASH vouchers that was then going to allow us to get the HHAP, which was then going to allow us to get the tax credits. And so if we didn't have the VASH,
Right.
we didn't have a project.
It was a project-based voucher.
Project-based VASH vouchers.
And they were able to give you a forward commit to you and you would get them in 2 years, or whatever.
That's correct. And so it was trying to educate the VA and HUD that, we're shelving these and it's real, and we're not going to use them. It's just that we need them to be there when we need to use them in 2 years.
Okay.
So this was the site, very lovely. If you can, anybody has ever watched Breaking Bad, that's a burned out Winnebago in the top left corner there. That's what they call it. So this is the site. We've got some real photos of it here. It's a big site in the middle of our neighborhood. It's an otherwise urban neighborhood, but it's on about it's over an acre. It might be 2 or 3 acres. I can't remember off the top of my head what we have here. And this is really, we just had our ribbon cutting last Friday and dedicated the building. So this is the finished product. What we have here, the entrance, we actually have some really great LEED stuff and stormwater retention. We have right there is kind of a dry riverbed almost. So that's where all of our surface water is coming down, draining into it, and we don't have a drop of water leave this site. We're dedicated to Robert Van Kuren. If anybody who does homeless services for veterans doesn't know about Robert Van Kuren, look him up. The more you learn about him, the man is incredible. And so we were glad to be able to dedicate the building in his honor. He's personally served over 200 combat missions in Vietnam, and then went on to found, help me with this, Marty, what did he? He found the National Stand Down movement out in San Diego, and then just done some just remarkable work in his career with the VA, and we were so proud and honored that he accepted that. You can see up here we've got a nice patio area here. In the back, we worked with Home Depot. Home Depot really helped us out. In the dead of winter, we built those planter boxes and the pergola back there on a very, very cold day, but Home Depot was a great partner with us as well, with their emphasis on helping veterans and housing veterans. These are the units. The units are fully furnished. This was a little bit staged, but what you see is what's in there. This is some of the community space we have. So we have some reading nooks throughout the building. We have this common area downstairs, which has a kitchenette. There's a computer lab behind that. We also have an exercise room. Our property management and maintenance offices are in there as well. And then there's also, as part of the VA space that we have, they have some group counseling rooms, individual offices, and another therapy room. So we have those spaces on site, and we are, we're really grateful. This project turned out beyond our expectations. We've worked with the VA in Syracuse for about 9 years. We've used them on other projects, but this was the first time we went full bore and did a full project on a single site with them. And the communication is really key to continue with them. We know our expectations of each agency, and we're really excited about what we did. After the fact, if you're going to have VA on site, these are some of the little things we learned. Trying to give away space to the VA was more difficult than we thought. You actually have to have a lease for $1, I think we have there. The IT rules, they have to have their own secure IT room, which we did not know. Furniture procurement, everything's done up to the nines in that building. The VA offices are actually still empty because it's turned into this 5-month process to get furniture that the VA owns and is responsible for. We had a lot of people that were interested in donations through the way. We'll be better suited next time we do a deal. A lot of people wanted to help out. We got a lot of phone calls. And really, the vets that we have coming through the door, the biggest things we have are just life necessities: sheets, cups, bowls, laundry baskets. Those are things that we really want to coordinate a little bit better. And then, again, communication and viewing our partners as partners has been really key as we've gone through the lease up. We've leased up 49 of the 50 units starting January 31st. So, and we've got the last one we have is the 2-bedroom mobility impaired hearing vision unit without a VASH voucher in it. So that one, we'll get it filled. It just takes a little more time, and that's the way it works. But, again, it took a lot of work, but really I can't impress upon you enough. The VASH is really important when you want to get these deals funded, and it helps your operating income. It really ensures that the vets can live there comfortably, and you don't have to worry about rent collection. So that's what we did at Van Kuren Square.
I have a few more questions for
Sure.
you. Sorry, I didn't prep you with my questions.
That's fine.
Before I ask questions, is there anybody who wants to ask anything from the audience about this project? Go ahead.
I'm actually from the VA.
You mind speaking up real quick?
Yeah, sure. So is this permanent housing?
Permanent supportive housing, yes.
Permanent supportive housing.
And it's also off-site, not on VA land.
So do you provide any transportation? Because I know it's kind of suburban up there, right?
No, that's a misnomer. We're in the city of Syracuse. We're about a half to 3/4 of a mile from the VA campus. We're less than a half a mile from a grocery store, on the bus line. And that was one of the reasons the VA actually wanted to do this, because they would spend 6 hours rounding up vets to do the services. And so by centrally locating, it actually increases their efficiency quite a bit.
So that's not an issue?
No, not in this case. And that gets down to the siting of the project.
I'm also from the VA. I work with HUD-VASH. I actually work with REC, it's one of our contract agencies. And I just want to say a really quick word about the VASH, why it's so difficult. If you guys don't know, VASH stands for VA Supportive Housing, and generally the voucher is a housing choice voucher that you could use anywhere for the veteran. So when you project base it, it just ties it up so the veteran has to use it in that unit, so they can't move from there. So that's part of the reason why we try sometimes to limit them, because it does take away a little bit of that element of choice. Not completely, because sometimes the supportive housing is a more appropriate option. So it's good to have some, but that's why you don't want all of them tied up in a project-based way.
You mean tied up on your total allocation of vouchers,
Exactly.
so...
You don't get that many.
Right. That's part of the problem, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Overall.
So I just wanted to mention that we're not being evil.
No.
This was when the batch process was new, so it was kind of, we were coming out of right field.
We were planning to bash the VA the whole time. They're so hard to work with. Like, rethink. No, I'm just joking. We love the VA. In the back.
Maybe this is a question for one of our VA representatives in the audience, but we're opening a project that has community units that are dedicated, not dedicated, but veteran preference. And we need to identify formerly homeless veterans, ideally with VASH vouchers, because in order to operate, having someone who can pay rent is obviously makes things easier. What's the best process for identifying people? We've had buildings in the past that have had trouble.
Do they have to be currently homeless coming from the shelter to get into their supportive housing?
Yes.
Okay. We could just talk to the VA, any of us with HUD-VASH, and we have, I think we have 150 vouchers this year. So sometimes we like to identify supportive housing so they get that extra bit of support, not just living out in the community, if that is a veteran's choice. So if you just let us know about your resource, we could distribute it to our case managers and help place them there. And I do think that in the next couple of weeks, the continuum of care here is starting more of a collaborative approach to get all that information out to all of New York City. So we'll probably contact that in the next couple of
Are you New York based?
Yes.
So what Bonnie's discussing is that the continuum of care has come up with a way for housing providers like yourself that actually have used to throw them in the ring, and then everyone is aware of that. So that's coming up.
I just want to say, just also, that I understand that HUD-VASH is very desirable because it's a subsidy, but there are plenty of veterans who do not meet the criteria to get a voucher from HUD-VASH, and they are really good candidates for permanent housing, supportive housing. They're veterans who work, and they will be responsible tenants. And I just wanted to put that plug out there that just because you were street or shelter homeless for a year or don't have chronic case management, acute case management needs, that you might just be financially in need and you can't, pay market rate. You might need, some assistance. Those are veterans who use housing.
Okay, thank you.
25 out of our 50 are non-VASH, so.
So we're going to try and leave equal time for all three speakers. So I think that's it.